Uh, the new government, uh, which got elected in May last year, uh, clearly is not committed not just to the food bill but also to the whole rights and welfare architecture that got constructed, imperfectly, incompletely, but still very significantly over the last 10 years. So both governments pursued market policies, but the UPA government also believed that there's need to create a framework, a legally enforceable framework of social protection, including the food bill, which this government is clearly not politically committed to. So what we have seen is a very low priority to the implementation of the food bill, the National Food Security Act. But secondly, also not respect for even the letter of the law, because the law was to be implemented within 12 months of the passage, fully implemented and rolled out. It has been given 3 extensions without going back to Parliament, just through administrative orders, which is actually patently illegal. More disturbingly, the budget reflected, it retained in cash terms, more or less the food subsidy, but uh, uh, but actually the full implementation of the act required in real terms an expansion of it. But what is worrying is the other elements which we have not attended to so much. In particular, the ICDS has seen almost a 50% reduction in uh, in the central government's contribution in the budgetary allocations for it. And this, I think, should have caused far more outrage and concern than it has. And and maternity benefits, which I think was the most radical new thing that this act was doing, was creating a universal maternity entitlement for all pregnant women who are not in the formal sector. There has been virtually no allocation for this in the budget at all, although it is an integral and important part of the food bill. It is, disingenuous and I think quite deliberately misleading if the government says that it is doing this because states have now got enough resources for their own, and they must make the necessary allocations for ICDS, midday meals, maternity benefits, and so on and so forth. Because it is true that they've been given a 10% higher share in the overall pool of central taxes, but simultaneously there has been almost a matching reduction in the transfer of resources in centrally sponsored schemes. Also, something that is important to understand is that the nature of central assistance has also changed for these programs, and they're not giving revenue support, which in simple words is that they are no longer going to support in the social sector, in health, in education, and in food and nutrition programs. They're not going to support the cost of staff. And you must recognize that in many of these programs, like the ICDS, like in actually the right to education and school, and in a lot of the health work, a major part of the expenses is of staff. So not supporting that is going to also. So there have been. So in summary, there have been very severe. In summary, there have been firstly a failure to address what the law actually requires the government to do. And I find that deeply, deeply worrying, because while we continue to stress market-led growth, the recognition that all these years of very high economic growth have not changed India's basic reality of every second child being malnourished, and an estimated 230 million people sleeping hungry every night, is not at all being addressed. and the fact that countries much poorer than India, which produce far less food, which have had much lower levels of economic growth, which don't have strong state capacities, which don't have high levels of economic growth like sub-Saharan Africa or even neighboring Bangladesh, have done far better than India in addressing and reversing hunger and malnutrition.